Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Lekon Obanjo. Here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. The U.S. stock market opened lower on Friday following declines in Europe and Asia after President Donald Trump announced new tariffs affecting over 90 countries. Trump raised tariffs on Canadian goods from 25 to 35%, citing concerns over fentanyl imports. Though most Canadian products remain exempt under the USMCA agreement, tariffs on Mexico have been paused for 90 more days, while Brazil faces a hefty 50% levy soon. Markets reacted with uncertainty. European stocks hit a 3-week low, and Asian markets are set for their worst week since April. Futures for Nasdaq and S&P 500 also dropped about 1%. These tariffs aim to protect U.S. industries, but have stirred global trade tensions and ongoing negotiations. Well, joining us on the news to discuss this is a political affairs analyst from Belcrest Institute, Joi John, and she joins me from Washington, D.C. Joi, thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thanks for having me.
So we see that President Trump's decision to impose new tariffs on over 90 countries is generating a lot of responses. But then how significant is this move in the broader context of global trade policy?
Well, that's a great question. I think that what is driving this is a sense that the U.S. wants to reassert control over trade rules that it feels no longer serve its interest. But the scale of this move, touching over 90 countries, sends a pretty strong signal. I think it shifts the tone globally. Instead of quiet negotiations behind closed doors, we are seeing more public and forceful ways of certain terms of coming to alignment. And you know, I think from there, we'll see more countries adjusting, not necessarily reacting to this new posture.
And now let's talk about some adjustments. Now, despite Prime Minister Mark Carney's disappointments, most Canadian goods remain exempt. How will this partial exemption affect Canada's economy and its trade relationship with the U.S.?
Absolutely, yes. You see, and here's the thing here. Canada may seem to have avoided the hit, or the direct hit right now, which is important. But the exemption does not eliminate uncertainty. It does not eliminate uncertainty. What it does is it just delays it. You know, for Canada, I think it creates a bit of a tension. The relationship with the U.S. remains strong on paper, but the trade is now a space where even close allies need to stay on their toes. So while the impact today is minimal, I think the political undertones are much harder to ignore, much harder.
Yeah, we understand. Now, with tariffs on Mexico delayed and Brazil facing a steep 50% levy, what message do you think the U.S. is trying to send to its trade partners, and how do you think these countries will respond?
You know, that contrast is very hard to ignore, I tell you. Delaying action to Mexico suggests that there's still, you know, a conversation happening behind closed doors, or at least room for one to take place. But Brazil's 50% hits, look, for Brazil, it sends a very strong signal. It's a different message altogether. What it does tell is that Washington is willing to act unilaterally and sharply. That's very clear. 50% is straight, is I think one of the highest, if not the highest. Most countries now will be reaching out through diplomatic channels, not to challenge it outrightly, but to understand, you know, and negotiate what can be done to avoid further escalation, using what happened with Brazil as a point in reference.
Now, Joi, given the wide geographic scope of these tariffs, which sectors or probably industries are likely to feel the impact the most? And how might global supply disruptions, or chains rather, be affected?
So right off the bat, industries that rely on you know, parts from multiple countries, for instance, electronics, automobiles, and even consumer goods like furniture, will feel this impact first. We have, when you put in a tariff or a tariff is applied, it ultimately increases cost. But more than that, it also disrupts planning. So if I plan to spend a certain amount on goods from a particular country, I have to go back to the drawing board. It's going to disrupt planning. Companies have to make quick decisions. Do they absorb the cost? Do they pass it on? Do they switch suppliers? Those are talks that are going to be on the table moving onwards. So I think we are likely to see short-term disruptions expected and longer-term repositioning as businesses adjust to this new tariffs.
I wonder how this would affect European countries. I mean, what are the likely short and long-term effects of these tariffs, most especially on the UK, especially given the country had time to negotiate terms during the postponement period?
Yes, for the UK did manage, like you rightly stated here, to use the postponement window to reduce initial effect or blow, however you want to look at it. But long term, I think the question is, how consistent is the United States going to be as a trade partner? That is the main question on the table. The uncertainty makes it harder for the UK to plan. And for post-Brexit Britain at this point, trying to build reliable partnerships, I think this adds a layer of complexity. And so we'll have to take it as we see it. So yes, it may seem that there's some breathing room now for the UK, but I don't think there's a lot of clarity going forward. It's still hazy.
Yeah. Now, in the light of the upcoming U.S. election, how much are these tariffs going to be used, so to speak, for political tool? Because that seems to be some sort of a global perception, most especially as they view President Trump's leadership.
Indeed. Well, I tell you, it's very hard to separate politics from policy in this moment. And for trade resonates with voters. When they head out to the polls, the voters here are very informed. So we're looking at everything. We're looking at how the policies impact our daily lives, especially in places where manufacturing or agriculture have taken a hit. There's certain parts of the United States that are known for agriculture, are known for manufacturing, for instance, like Michigan is known, of course, for the assembly vehicles there. This move may play well politically for them, but particularly voters who see it as standing up for American industries. A lot of people who support President Trump, for the most part, his supporters believe that his actions are helping the United States. They believe that his actions are helping the industries grow. That may not be the case on the other side of the aisle. Internationally, there's some hesitation because people want to understand why it's being done, and allies are watching. Canada used to be an ally up until Trump, the first Trump presidency, was one of the closest allies for the United States. But overall, allies will be watching closely whether this becomes a trend or remains a one-off. But in the end, I think it reinforces the image of the president willing to take a bold stance on the global stage. How it will play out, it's hard to tell. Everything is hazy at the moment. We can just see what happened with Russia moments ago. He's declared a subtle announcement towards Russia. We've deployed military ships there. We don't know who our allies are and who the enemies are. So we'll just watch how it plays out on the international stage. Every day, everything new, there's something you should talk about.
Well, I tell you, in all of this, one would just hope these would not have some sort of long-term adverse effects on US's diplomatic and trade relations with other countries. Thank you so much, Joi John, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.